Hi, and welcome to In Her Era. I am Monique Took, functional health practitioner, and I cannot believe this is the very first episode of this podcast. I wanted this to be like just really you and me, as if we're sitting over a matcha having a conversation. I wanted to make this first episode probably one of the hardest conversations that I have had, and share a topic that you deserve to know because it makes sense about why I am the way I am, why I am the practitioner I am, and who I am because of it. But it is, a story that I haven't shared very openly with people. Not many people know the full extent of that time in my life. And I thought, what better way to start this podcast together than with this episode? So my health journey was probably, one of the hardest times in my life. It is the reason why I am who I am. I am the practitioner I am, but definitely was hard for me and everybody else around me at that time. When I was writing dot points to be like, what was the journey, what I actually went through, and I had to relive it, I literally was crying because, it's again something I've not really spoken about and not talked about and shared in so much detail about what I did and what I went through. And I was like, if I get through this episode without crying, it will literally be a miracle. But I think I'm not in my luteal phase, so I don't think I will be as of a mess as I probably would be. But basically my health hit rock bottom when I was 21. I would struggle to even get out of bed. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and just crying. I had cystic acne all over my face. I was so skinny, you could see my rib cages and my collarbones because I had lost so much weight. I had dropped down to 38 kilograms. I had lost 14 kilograms in 6 months, which is, a drastic amount. It was really unexpected. I was starting to turn yellow. I had severe stomach pains that was affecting, my life. I would be running to the toilet every time I ate and things like that. So it was quite a low time, and doctors, would look at my test results, and they said that my hormones were at the level of a 50-year-old. Basically, I was in menopause, and if I kept going the way I was going, I would never have children. And that is a hard thing to hear when you are 21. And I know other women experience this. You go to the doctor and they always give you whether it's for period pain or acne or depression, they give you a pill or a prescription to just fix that one thing. And this doctor that I went to was like, you need to eat more food. I was like, I am eating like an elephant. I was eating whole foods at the time, but I was eating so much. And I know that the food's not the issue. There's an underlying thing of why I feel this way. And I think that's really what sparked why I went on this full journey. But I'm 21. It was, I'm meant to be going to all the parties. I'm meant to be dating. I'm meant to be living the best part of my life. And yet it wasn't even just the physical stuff that was hard. It was, I hated what I look like. My cystic acne, I hated it. I was always having to cover up. With my weight, I was so skinny, and I would remember having to go to the kids section because no adult clothes would fit me. And I remember wearing these huge oversized shirts so that no one would really see what was on underneath. And I'm in physio, so I was in the 3rd year of physio when I had this. And in physiotherapy, you basically have to strip down to your bra and undies, and then you do manipulations and mobilizations on ourselves, and we can see our muscles more exterior. But I was so skinny. Everything was protruding from my body. You could see my rib cages and my spine. And, my friends knew what was going on, but no one else did. I'm not going to tell my 150 people cohort, like, this is my health thing. So it's really, it made sense that they would assume like I had an eating disorder, I wasn't eating enough. And, no one ever said it to me, but like I definitely knew what they were thinking. And like, imagine that, going through that as like a 21-year-old, have people thinking these things about you. It was so hard. And then I remember like I didn't even take photos during that time. You could, I think back, I'm like, oh, I really wish I took more photos, but I literally couldn't. I couldn't be in front of a camera, and my family loves taking photos. But I remember I got my dad to do like a photo shoot with me. And, I stripped down to just what I would wear in physio, like my crop top and stuff, so you could see all my ribs, everything, because I knew that that was my turning point. I knew that that was the moment that, things had started to move based on like the health things that I were doing and the healing that I had started. And I knew that that would be the lowest I would ever be again. And I wanted to document it. And that was the only time I have, photos of that time, that really hard year of my life, just because of like how embarrassed it was for me. I have, a lot of theories about going back to why it started and what kind of like caused it. But I don't think it was one thing. Going through, my studies and learning so much about health, I think, I call it functional health decline. And what it is basically like you've got all these little symptoms that basically add up, but you're functioning normally. For example, like if you've got acne or bloating or, niggling weight that won't let go, like your body is like telling you little signs that something is off, but you're still functioning. You're fine. You're working, you're going to uni, you're doing all the things. So, to me, that's what was going on. And before this, in the time of my life, I had glandular fever. So I was taking multiple rounds of antibiotics. With my diet, my God, going to school when I was in high school, I would literally have a plain white bread roll and a chocolate muffin. And then I would come home and I would have this like giant glass of Milo, like the ones where you like put in like 2 tablespoons of like, maybe it wasn't 2, like a 1 tablespoon of Milo, and then you fill it up with milk, and then the milk turns really, really brown because there's so much Milo in there. Like that's basically what I ate. And my parents were great. Like at dinner, it was very nutritionally dense, but throughout the week, no, that's just not how it worked. So my diet, when I was younger, also I had croup and I had lung issues, so I was on medication for that. So I never think it was just one thing that caused my health decline. I do think it was just a combination of things. And I think of it like a rope. It's like you're pulling at the rope and it's constantly pulling, and then it will start to fray. It starts to break because it can't handle it anymore. So in terms of what I did, gosh, there was such a multitude of things that I did. And it's so interesting because you see me back then, you hear these stories of, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine her back then to what I am now, because I am definitely the healthiest, most vibrant, most alive person I am, and that health practitioner I am today. So I think, I became obsessed. I was obsessed with studying and learning to heal myself. And I'm such an academic person. I've always been that. Like I went to school. I was very type A. Always got A's. Anything less than an A, I did not like. Like I've always been very studious, and I just became obsessed with studying health at the time. And this was like when like social media didn't exist. There was no Instagram, there was no TikTok, but there was definitely Facebook. But we were just like writing statuses, like I ate a croissant, or like I love Maxine. Like we would write the most random things. So there wasn't all this noise online that I was just competing with. It was just me getting information from like science papers and like legitimate experts and doctors in different fields. I was studying ancient Eastern medicine. I was studying Western medicine. I literally was like obsessed, and I would go down like a rabbit hole where I remember being like at 10 o'clock at night, and I would research one thing, and that would open up a can of worms, and I would go deep dive into that next topic. And, it just uncovered this whole filing cabinet of knowledge. And gut health like really wasn't a thing back then, of how trendy it is today. And after all my research, I knew that it was my gut. Like I knew it like all originated in my gut. And I was really lucky that I got to have a consult with a really high gut expert in Australia before she charged like definitely what she is worth. And I remember like bringing my gut test to her, which was a little bit primitive at the time. Like these gut tests are nowhere near like as good as what we have today. And I was like, this is my gut test. And she looked at me and she was like, I do not know how you're even getting up out of bed or let alone functioning throughout the day. Like your gut is basically a mess. I remember bringing in people. She brought someone in for the call to like as an educational moment because literally my gut was so fucked up. So I will do a full gut health episode of like the ins and out and what I did and like what you can take away and what you can learn from it. But in a nutshell, my gut was a shit show. I had, all an overgrowth of these bad bacteria or pathogens and pathobionts that were like overrunning, and my good guys or my good microbiome I had such a low diversity. So it's like my army of good things were not there to fight my bad guys. And I had leaky gut, I had high inflammation, I had histamine issues, I had all this stuff going on. And because my gut was so messed up, then it affected my hormones, it affected my liver, it affected, my brain because that gut-brain connection. It was then impacting my skin. Everything was just like compounding because of how absolutely destroyed my gut was at the time. So I did like a multitude of things. I remember taking certain herbs to kind of like kill and eradicate the bacteria was in there. But like if I did my time over, things that I did were quite extreme. Like I did coffee enemas where you put a tube up your bum, like just some weird things. I definitely, it was needed at the time, but if I was repeating it, there would definitely be some things that I would change and it wouldn't be so drastic. But, at that stage that I was with the information that, we had in the health community, it wasn't as prevalent. But, as I started to heal my gut, as I started to turn things over, I could feel my energy coming back. I visibly wasn't losing weight anymore. I was maintaining and even maybe starting to gain a little bit. That was when I could start to look at my hormones, look at my detoxification pathways. Like without looking at your gut first, nothing else really mattered. So gut came first, and then I could start to kind of fix everything else in my body. Literally would have taken me about a year to get back to my normal baseline. And I always like to tell people that health takes time. Healing your body takes time. And when you see online and you see all these things like, what would you say, like 4-week heal your gut or clear your skin in 30 days, like it's not actually going to work like that unless you had some very, very minor things going on. But a lot of the time we've got chronic, we've got deep things, we've got embedded things that have been there for years, and it just takes time. When I was going through it, I remember I documented everything. I literally found it the other day. It was documents and pages of everything I did, everything I tried, like foods I took out, what it reacted to me. Yeah, it was such a long thing because I think I just knew. I knew at that time that I was going to help other women through their health. I couldn't have gone through what I went through without using it to help other women, because I never wanted women to just have that blanket, oh, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know. You've got all these symptoms. Let's just give you a pill. Like I never wanted someone to have that. So it's funny because even my friend, when I was studying physio, she was like, Monique, you're not going to be doing this forever. And she saw my health journey and everything I went through and how dedicated I was. And yeah, even though I finished physio, I'm grateful because it then opened the doors to what I did next. So I then studied functional medicine. I studied advanced microbiome analysis and gut health. I studied courses from the integrative nutrition. I am still studying as Monique form. I'm studying functional diagnostic nutrition so I can do even more lab work, because to me that was such a needle moving thing in terms of my health, and I want to give that to other people as well. It is really why I do what I do. It is really why I am so passionate about being, a functional medicine practitioner, about this podcast, because I never want women to be at that stage like I was, where they're looking at themselves in the mirror, hating what they look like, where they feel so crap and they know that they are ceilings. Like they can never be the woman they want to be. They can never have the career or the life that they want because their health is blocking them, because that is exactly how I felt. And I never want women to experience that. I never want women to go to the doctors and be just given a pill or a prescription instead of understanding why. My whole philosophy is that we need to understand why the symptoms are there. They're not random. They're there because they're signs from your body that something is wrong. And it's our duty to kind of work out what is going on underneath the surface, going upstream and being like, why did these symptoms occur? Because there's always a why, and targeting that instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it. So that is my journey. That is my story. I hope that in some way that this inspires you, that there is hope, that there is something out there. There are people that care, that despite, you having all these symptoms, or what I call high functioning health decline, where you've got these niggles, there are things that you can do to make a huge impact in your health. And that is why I made this podcast, because there is just so much noise online now. There is so much misinformation and then conflicting information on TikTok, or there's like really, really long podcast episodes that no one is listening to, even though they're packed full of information. I wanted to be that in between where you can have the actual science-backed information, but you can actually implement it in your life so that it will make a huge difference in how you feel. That is why I work one-on-one with clients, so that, we get to the root cause, we use testing and actually make them that best versions of themselves. And I am so honored and excited that you get to be, a part of this journey, a part of this community, so that we can absolutely help us step into that era, whatever that looks like for us, whether that's more confidence, more success, more energy in your day. It's about feeling the absolute best that you can possibly be. And that is why I'm here. So thank you for listening. I'm always grateful to be in your ears, for you to tune in and just take time out of your day to learn and be inspired and become, that best version of yourself. So I cannot wait to be in your ears and continue to be in your ears. I will be back next Wednesday. And until then, see you later.